Hello, friends. We are in the most disturbing of times. If you have been watching, as I have, the events of yesterday in Washington, D.C., as our nation's capital was breached and overrun by people bent on violence and destruction, of disregard and disruption of our democratic processes for transferring power. And in this story that has been breaking news for the last almost 24 hours now, I want to talk to you about the importance of your spiritual practices and about the spiritual practice of stories. So the first thing is, we've been talking in these weekly and daily ministers' messages about the importance of having our own spiritual practices and engaging them through times of trouble and turmoil. Today, I encourage you, whatever your spiritual practice is, whether it's meditation or prayer, whether it's movement or stillness, whether it's silence or full of words, whatever your spiritual practice has been, engage it now. Use it to find your balance and to keep your balance as the world about us is in turmoil. And then, having found your balance, having taken that pause that spiritual practice gives us to choose our next step, then ask yourself, what is the story of this day, and how might you participate in changing it going forward? I don't know about you, but as I watch the news on television, I see these images over and over again, the repeated images of the violence and the destruction, of the disregard and the disrespect for the values that we cherish, of democratic government and power. And as those images have been on repeated cycle since last night, and we can expect them to continue as they need to tell the story truthfully, I encourage you to find your moment to turn away from them. Once you have absorbed them, then turn away and don't let them complete the story. Yes, our nation's capital has been breached, but now is the time to ask ourselves, how will we participate in writing a new story in what has been broken open? Every blossom that comes into this world comes only after the bud that has contained it has been broken open. Now we have an opportunity to create and add to the images of the story that unfolds from this day forward. So adding to the images that have been replaying in the news, what images and stories will you bring in? Not only in your own heart and mind and in your life, but in the world around you. What stories of resilience and power, what stories of community and shared value will you participate in bringing forward? Ben Okri, the Nigerian author, poet, and playwright, has this beautiful phrase that he says, stories are the secret reservoir of our values. Change the stories the individuals and nations live by and tell themselves, and you will change the individuals and the nations. You and I, friends, have the chance to tell a different story, to live into a different story. So I ask you to intentionally and generously call up the images of a different story going forward. Images and stories of power sharing, of diversity, equity, and inclusion that can move this nation forward from its traumatic and oppressive past. We each have a part to play in that. Denise Levertov, in her poem Beginners, ends the poem with these lines. There is too much broken that must be mended, too much hurt we have done to each other that cannot yet be forgiven. We have only begun to know the power that is in us. If we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle, so much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in bud. In this moment of breakage, I invite you to practice the promise of what is broken open by bringing to bloom in your life, in your practice, in your thinking and your doing, a blossoming of something new, a shared story of promise, of justice, of peace. If you are on social media, I ask you to share images that present the possibilities of this moment. Share stories. Share the promise of resilience and empowerment that is rooted in justice, love, and peace. Bell Hooks once said that she doesn't like to use the word social action. She prefers the phrase radical thinking or radical practice. Because that, she said, brings about the fullness of change that is required by true social action. The radical transformation that occurs within us and plays out among us. So won't you participate in the blossoming of this new story? Add your images and stories wherever you are, on social media, in conversation. Pick up the phone and call someone, share an image, a story, a message of resilience and of the better story that might begin in this moment, breaking open now. Take good care. Be steady, be strong, be beautiful in your own blooming.